So you need to be in here and sitting and listening to me. Woo! Okay, well, at least everybody took the lesson about the STFU wall. Come on now, herd them in here. Bully them in if you have to, but get everybody in here. It's time to do one-on-one. Hurry up, Bill. No. There is none. All right, everybody, as folks filter in, welcome to the February 2026 edition of Seckc. Hello! My name is Julie Fugit, the ever so creatively named J-Fog. If you see that name around, that's me. And I am really, really excited to be back and running 101 for you all this evening. So get ready. This is the biggest and besterest monthly InfoSec event in the world. We are the coolest local regional meetup that you could possibly attend. Who's with me? Yes. We meet the second Tuesday of every month. Colloquially known as Patch Tuesday. Tomorrow's Reboot Wednesday. And we will almost always be here. And we love Knuckleheads. Hey, let's hear it for Knuckleheads. Woo! So, welcome. Thank you. We're glad you're here. Okay. I don't know that I would have used the word pragmatic to describe anything about this organization. And I would also not use the word organization to describe anything about Seckc. But, hey, we've got the Wes McGrew seal of approval, and he's cool, so that must make us cool. Hey, I've got a question for everybody. Who sucks? Bill, all right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Bill sucks. Thank you. Thank you. He likes the attention. Okay. Let's see, moving on. And I was thinking about this slide as I looked down here at these two beautiful children. We drop a lot of F-bombs. You're okay? You're down? Okay, good. Thank you. I'm thinking through the deck, and I look down. I'm like, oh, fuck. So don't repeat any of this at school, you two. Okay? Yeah. I can't help it. So this is definitely a rated R environment. You're going to hear some F-bombs. If you have delicate sensitivities, you might want to leave them at home. Like just pack those up, leave them at home. This is an adult zone, and we are going to say adult things. So buckle up. You promise they're okay? Okay. So we do have a code of conduct, Bill, and. And we want everybody to feel welcome here. So if there is somebody that is making you feel uncomfortable, playing a little grab ass, making you feel unwelcome, just generally being a jackwagon, find somebody with a yellow badge. Those are your code of conduct folks. And I know I've got some around. Please wave your hands, make a nuisance of yourself. If you've got a problem, find one of us, okay? White badges are your fallback, but white or yellow badge is somebody that's here as an official Seckc person. They can help you out. Oh yeah, and harpsichords and percussionists are banned. Sorry. Hey, a quick, quick band joke here. What do you call the people that hang around with musicians? Percussionists. Drummers, yeah. Okay, next slide. I'll stop with the band slander here. Going along with our code of conduct discussion, don't be a dick. Like, congratulations, you got a flip for 0. Woo, you're elite now. Don't use it. Don't be a dick. Don't fuck with the stuff around here. Don't fuck with other people. Don't do any damage. Please, it's uncool. Well, yeah, but that's just their little feelings, and we can hurt those, so. The law is, in fact, here on a regular basis. They're not going to come in with their, there is no such thing as if you're a cop, you have to tell me, Bill. But they're here, so don't talk about the illegal cool shit that you're doing out loud unless you want to take a ride in a party van, okay? They're here, they're in attendance. We don't have to go out and talk about bad things. They might overhear you. Okay, I have a couple of questions. Who here can't wear a hoodie and jeans to work every day? Okay, got a few of you. How many of you here are don't have computer science degrees? Jesus, that makes me feel so good. Do either of those things mean that you are not a technical person or that you don't belong in Seckc? No. Fuck no, that's right. As a tweet that I really love, I saw once, assume she is technical and capable of breathing fire. Everybody here belongs here. Everybody's here because they want to be here, not because somebody dragged them here against their will. Except for these two because they can't drive. No, nobody cares about drummers. So, if somebody is here, assume competence, assume they want to be here, assume they're technical because they are all three of those things if they are part of Seckc. Got it? We cool? Excellent, thank you. Okay, we have an acronym here that we like. Shut the fuck up. Now I'm censoring F-bombs. I don't know, kids, it's fine. If you are here because you want to hear the talks, your butt is in the right seat right now. If you are here because you want to catch up with friends, you need to be back there behind the shut the fuck up wall. Right there, back behind there. If you're gonna shoot the breeze, that's where you're gonna do it. So, everybody turn around. See the wall? Say it with me. What is that? The shut the perfect, thank you. All right, SecDSM is dope too. Do we have any SecDSM folks in the audience this evening? Well, we love them, and so we're gonna delete the, listen, sir, who gave me the deck? Lies. Okay, it's your turn. We want people from around here to speak. If you've got something to talk about, guess what? We want to hear about it. You don't need to have, you don't need to be dropping Ode to be cool enough to speak here. So submit your talk. We want to hear it. This one goes well with the everyone here is technical. Meet new people. Go up. I know we're all nerds, but do your best to reach out to somebody you've not met before. Say hello. Welcome to the Seckc. Introduce yourself. We have socials. Seckc is run by volunteers. Just like me, they don't pay me to be here. I'm just here to grace Bill with my presence. But if you want to get involved, please do volunteer. There's something for everybody to do here, and we want you to get engaged and be involved. So if you have a skill, I have like one. I'm up here yelling at you. Please do reach out, look at the volunteer form, reach out to any of the director folks on Discord and get signed up to volunteer. Speaking of Discord, that goes with our socials. Bill, we got to tighten this deck up a little bit. Come on, there's too many slides. We are very serious business. I don't know why that's the hot dog thing. It's an ongoing thing now. Speak for yourself. Wiener, so it's Patch Tuesdays and Wiener Wednesdays. Is that what we're going with? Yeah, that's yes. There's swag in that general direction. Please give us your money. It's back behind the shut the fuck up wall. The stickers are really fun. Go buy yourself some stickers and some hoodies because apparently we're broke. Oh, look for the lasers. Nobody shows me the books. So. A Seckc first, woo, in March. Yes, we're planning ahead. We are an organization after all. Social engineering masterclass in March. In April, we've got Triwolf and Rando coming to speak.
Tell us more about your talk in April.
I can't tell who said that, but I love you so much. It was Aaron. Oh my God. I'll explain later. I do. I have a twin. Triwolf and I have gotten mistaken for one another on enough occasions that it's a thing. Yeah. She announced she was hiring once, and people came up to me asking about her jobs. So, yeah. In May, AI hacks with Codex and August. And then June will be, I can't read this very well, Mike's. Eight girls, 1 cup, 8 mics, 1 night. There you go. Tip your bartenders. Don't be an asshole. They work very hard to make us very happy. Tip them. So we have a slide of events that is too small for me to read, and I'm going to turn around and read it, even though that's not a thing you're supposed to do. If you start driving now, you'll make it to WWHF in Denver tomorrow. Women in Security Kansas City on the 18th. Kansas City Women in Technology on the 14th, because numbers are hard. Seckc on Ice, which is going to be a shit show. Skating, yeah. Fuck ice. But yeah, the fun kind of ice skating. Seckc DSM, March 5th. Seckc, March 10th. CypherCon, April 1st and 2nd. KernelCon, April 9th and 10th. B-Sides KC, April 25th. BurbSec East, the new addition to the slide is about 15 minutes ago, and all I know is that Zool tells me there's going to be a lot of grilled cheese. And that's not a metaphor for anything. And then HoboCon. HoboCon 2 is going to be in July of 2026. It's going to be great. Did I say July? I meant June. Sorry. July. Well, somebody corrected me. There we go. Okay. I'm getting the wrap it up from Joel. Sorry. I know. This is more about the stuff I just talked about, so I'm going to keep moving. Tonight's lineup, 5 o'clock was Make Excuses time. Clearly, quite a few of you made excuses. Congratulations. 6 o'clock, you're soaking in it. 6:15, open source news with Netcode. I don't know where he is, but this is all, you're amazing. Hi. I can't hear you. 6:30, how modern threat actors infiltrate and take over enterprise environments with Jake. We have an open jobs speed round for, if you are a candidate, stick around for that. And then software bill of materials with Aaron, and then Mad Beatz at 8:30. Okay. Yes, we need sponsors. Contact information's up there. All right, here we go. So if you are one of those criminals I was talking to earlier that we want you to not speak up around the cops, now's the time to go back to the bar, because we are going to take a group shot. For the rest of you, hey, we're going to take a group shot. So why don't you all come up here to sort of congregate here in the front so that we can all see your lovely faces. Hi, buddy. You're going to want to get up on a chair so we can really see you. Come on, nerds, get up and get up here. Jesus.
Levez-vous.
Congregate. I can see you back there, people. if you're in this area, I'm just going to assume you want to be in the picture. So if I'm yelling at you and you don't want to be in the picture, go somewhere that I can't see you. And we can squeeze in here in the middle, too. Come on.
Please talk to our sponsors. Tip your bartenders. If you have any potential sponsors for us, please let us know. Sponsorship at seckc.org. Thank you for coming out tonight. We're going to do open source news next.
All right, let's get into some fucking news, all right? There's some great stuff happened in the last month and a half. You know, it's been great. So let's start with some vulnerabilities. There's some fun ones. Notepad+, you guys might have heard about this one. It's been a thing the last week. It appears to have been in the update function, I believe, in the Notepad++ updater. And I'm not really sure, actually, if this full scope has been determined yet, but it appears to have been primarily targeting, it was a very targeted attack, primarily targeting Central and South America and Southeast Asia. So the assumption is China. Also, it looks like China. SSO, for everyone. When Fortinet says single sign-on, they fucking mean it. You can sign into any Fortinet box with SSO. Your SSO, in fact. You don't even need someone else's account. You can use your own. I think they fixed this, and it also required having a setting enabled, but it was pretty funny. Microsoft's trying to deprecate UAC. I don't know why I put this under vulnerabilities. I think that's because UAC has so many CVEs and bypasses. You can just use any of like 80-some bypasses, and it's free. So now they're trying to use, administrator protection, which seems like a cringe name to me, but whatever. Kubernetes RCE, turns out it's not actually a bug, it's a feature. At least that's what the security researchers who reported this were told. That's just how it's meant to be, apparently. So you might want to see what you can do to mitigate that, because apparently they're not patching it. There's a Telnet D remote auth bypass for any of you guys that are running Telnet D and can update it. I really hope there's none of you in this crowd, but if there are, you should do that. Actually, Synology had an update they pushed for that. I don't know, no one should have it. Anyway, they did. CISA finally noticed that VMware, whatever it's called, ESXi, there's that funny little flaw Brian Krebs was talking about. I think I actually mentioned it a year ago when it happened. But they finally put out an advisory about it. They realized. I'm so proud of them. Can we get a huge round of applause for CISA? Thanks. Kim Wolf Botnet, you guys might have heard of this one. They're responsible for a little bit of a DDoS attack recently. But you know all those really, really cheap, too good to be true TV or like streaming boxes that are like $50 and are like, oh, you get access to all the things? Yeah, they are incredibly easy or already are infected with Kim Wolf, which also seems to have been spreading via residential proxies, where if you download a sketchy as fuck app and now you have this proxy on your phone, threat actors just use that to pivot and take over everything on your network and put Kim Wolf on it. Anyway, that's how they got a 31.4 terabit per second attack for 35 seconds, which that's a lot. That is a lot of terabits. On to some breaches. Iron Mountain, this one I thought was pretty funny. They didn't actually get any information from their customers. They just got access to their marketing material, so I just thought that was funny. Conduent, however you spell their name, says they got popped by Safeway last year, and now they're saying last year they said it was 4-point-something million people affected. Joke's on you guys, it's 14 or 15. And then it indirectly affects about 100 million people. There's a contractor that took a job at Booz Allen Hamilton specifically to leak IRS records. That's how Trump's tax documents got leaked. This guy was like, I'm going to do it myself. That's literally the only reason he got the job. Curator Live. This is kind of funny. You know how sometimes weddings have a photo booth where you go in, you get a fun picture, and it's like, oh, that was so great, we got a really drunk picture. So Curator Live actually just uploads all their pictures to, as far as I can tell, like an S3 bucket, and you can just access any of them. And somebody figured that out and just was pulling them down because I thought it was funny. There was a big breach. The Police Service of Northern Ireland a little bit ago, and their information was published, and they're getting paid like $7,500 or $8,000 a person, which is a little weird. I can't believe people are getting compensated. On to some funny moments. Switches in a boot loop. It's still fucking DNS. It's a switch. It is a fucking switch. How is it DNS? But it is. Thanks, Cisco. Mandiant released an enormous rainbow table of NTLM v1 hashes. I know, that's pretty cool. Thanks, Mandiant. Dutch authorities seized a nice WinScribe server. And, you know, WinScribe saying it's because they had the unredacted Epstein files, but I'm not sure I believe them. Anyway, I hope they enjoy their stock Ubuntu install, because RAM servers, yippee. Bitcoin's doing funny things. Crypto's all doing funny things. I just saw that Bitcoin's down like 47% in the last couple months, and I thought that was kind of funny. Unless you have some, and that's not really funny. A Google engineer got caught selling AI secrets to China. I don't actually know if that violates ITAR. I assume it does, but onto some skill issues. Logitech broke their Mac OS app that all of their peripherals require due to an expired certificate, because it's really an interesting app and it needs to run all the time, and so it needs this weird certificate, and they didn't renew that, and so it just nuked everyone's Mac OS Logitech app. There's this handy-dandy shipping company that had a lot of data exposed. It's a good article. And when notified about it, they said nothing, and then eventually nothing, and then they notified one of their customers, and their customer said nothing, and then eventually they sent the email, or the CEO part of his password, and then they got contacted by lawyers. So that was kind of fun. The FTC says that OnStar isn't fucking allowed to share your consumer data with consumer reporting agencies. This is phenomenal news. Holy fuck. I don't know how OnStar was allowed to do that. It's crazy, but now they can't. Fuck off, Mozilla. I don't want AI in my fucking web browser. It's a web browser. It's a sacred place. Step the fuck back. TikTok was sold. You guys might have heard about this one. Larry Ellison and co. have acquired it now. And apparently, immediately, everything is getting censored from Epstein to Israel. And if you searched for anything, it would just search Israel, which was kind of funny. Like for the official Israeli government TikTok account. Anyway, that Penn State breach last year, turns out they in total, across the entire breach, lost 10 users' information. So, I think the odds are pretty good. New York has decided, in addition to Washington, that 3D printers are cringe, not allowed, and you should not be allowed to 3D print firearms. As a proud Missourian, fuck that. Anyway, also 3D printing, let's go. I don't know how the fuck they plan on enforcing that. They're saying, oh, we'll upload it to the cloud first. Great, that's going to go so well. It's all rep-wrap firmware anyway. It's built on open source. Anyway, ransomware. There's a bug in nitrogen ransomware that just doesn't decrypt. It's a wiper. That's all it is. It doesn't matter what key you give it. It doesn't decrypt. Bridge pay outage. You might have noticed that one with some payment tools. That was because they got ransomed. On to some funny, mildly interesting stuff. You can now install security updates on all the way back to the iPhone 6. Apple just announced that, I think, a week or two ago. So that's pretty fun. Google should have paid a little bit more. They only paid $68 million to settle the lawsuit of, we were listening on all of your smart home devices and everything that you could say, hey, Google, too, we've been listening to that the whole time. They could have just paid $1 million more, and it would have been funny. But no, they had to go 68. Cheap fucks. Anyway, Wi-Fi can be used to track people. This is not news. This has been around for a long time, but now they're doing it more. And you might notice that some, I believe it's Mediacom routers, now in their settings panel are like, oh, hey, do you want to see if there's anybody in the room? We can do that. It's pretty cool. If you want to know if anyone's in your room at any given time, fuck off. That's how radios work. It's cool. I highly recommend looking into that. It's very awesome. Anyway, Cloudflare discontinued proxy DNS and Cloudflare D, so I hope you guys weren't using that. They did that on the 1st, or on the 2nd, so it's kind of late. Google took out a huge amount of residential proxies by taking down a bunch of IP ideas domains. They're one of the biggest residential proxy companies. Microsoft, turns out, just gives BitLocker keys to the FBI, so if that's your strategy, you should find a new one. Curl took down their bug bounty program on HackerOne because all they were getting, pretty much the vast majority of it anyway, was AI slop reports. Just nothing but slop. It's great. WhatsApp's got a lawsuit going against them right now for a lack of encryption. I haven't heard or seen anything to suggest that it is actually true or there's anything behind it. But if you see anything about that, it seems to be bullshit. The World Factbook got taken down, but there's a backup. That guy has a backup, which is kind of fun. Now there's a bunch of laws about, or soon to be a bunch of laws about Chinese code in cars. So software bill of materials talk coming up later is going to be real relevant. Starlink is using your data for training their AI. Shocker to literally nobody. .ru somehow wasn't the most abused domain for botnets last year until the second half, where it shot up from, I think it was 3rd to 1st. By a 3,700% increase. I don't know how it wasn't first already, but it did it. Lockdown mode turns out on iPhones, very good. It's also good on Android. You should know how to do it. It, in fact, doesn't allow Celebrite to, or whatever other tool ICE and cops are using right now to get your phone. Elon Musk companies are just eating each other. So you know how XAI bought Twitter? Well, X. SpaceX just acquired XAI. So maybe Tesla's going to acquire SpaceX next? I don't know. On to some what the fuck type of things. OnePlus is trying to keep you from installing your own ROMs by adding a one-time fuse using the one-time fuse in the Qualcomm chip. Kill yourselves. Genuinely OnePlus, what the fuck? We had a thing going. It was a good thing, but no. Grok's making non-consensual nude images and CSAM. You guys might have heard about that. Little bit of a problem. Legally, ethically, in every way, it's a bit of a problem. In better news, their Paris office got raided a couple days ago, and the UK is investigating them, but I don't think that's going to actually get anything. On to some really fucking terrible stuff. Flock and Ring have been partnered for a little bit, so Ring cameras are automatically added into Flock's camera network. And at the Super Bowl, they had an ad about Search Party. You should about how great it is for finding dogs, because 1 million dogs get lost every year in the United States, and they find about 300 every year. They're phenomenal. We're doing great. They're doing awards work there. Anyway, you should disable Search Party unless you want all of your cameras, all your Ring cameras, to be just piping their data straight to Flock, Palantir, ICE, cops, fucking anyone. Don't do that. Just fucking disable it. They even say how on their website. It's not very complicated in the app. You should do it. Speaking of Flock, cops seem to be using Flock and not brain cells, which is a little bit of a problem to anybody who doesn't like getting the shit beat out of them, especially because facial recognition doesn't seem to work quite as well when you have darker skin. It's great on the lighter it is, more effective. Darker it is, less effective. So that's a fucking problem. Discord age verification. This was announced a couple days ago. I saw a lot of people in the Discord talking about what the alternatives are. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot. But now you're going to have to verify your age if you want to use a couple features that not that many people use, but next month they're going to be like, shucks, now it's all the features. Epstein files, some of them were released. Weren't very well redacted. Attachments weren't redacted. There were a lot of files that are like a lot of copies of the same file where different things are redacted in them, so you can just make the whole file. It was done very poorly. And then there's this fuck-ass tool that Palantir made for ICE that allows you to just track anybody and find out anything you possibly want to know about them. It's a great tool. Fuck ICE. Fuck Palantir, more specifically. Now on to some fucking hilarious things. The U.S. Air Force banned smart glasses. They didn't ban the Meta Ray-Bans immediately? You want Air Force personnel walking around wearing Ray-Bans? Claudebot, you guys might have heard this one. This is kind of funny. Claudebot, great, basically just a little bot that connects to Claude and says, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And then, more specifically, with skills. You give it a skill, and then it says, I know how to do this thing now. And then it kind of does the thing. Anyway, the Claude sent them a cease and desist because, weirdly enough, Claudebot is too close to Claude. So they changed their name to Moltbot, which we can all agree is a dog shit name. So then they changed their name to OpenClaw, which is a much, much, much better name. During the Moltclaw era of 2 days, Moltbook became a thing, which is what if we had Reddit, but it was for all of these AI agents that were talking to each other? And what if you had to be an AI agent to post on it? And that's a really great idea, except it's not. Also, you can't stop people from signing up. So people just made bots that signed up 500,000 users super quickly because there's no rate limiting. And all those posts you saw the AIs are talking about taking over the world or killing everybody on Moltbook. People posted those. You could just send a curl request and it would magically show up on the website. That was people. On to some good news. That coal fire incident from however many years ago finally got resolved. They got paid $600,000, I think, from the county. So I don't think that's worth it, but I'm glad something happened. On to some miscellaneous stuff I forgot to put into the slides. Anna's Archive got pretty much all of Spotify. They dumped everything off Spotify, which is really great, very impressive. And then their .org domain got taken down. I don't know if you guys know how hard it is to get a .org domain taken down. It's very fucking hard. Anyway, that happened about a week or two later. And now NEWZ is getting sued for $13 trillion, which I think is $150,000 per song that they downloaded. I don't think they're going to be getting that back. Just wild guess. Based on how often NEWZ is asking for donations, I don't think they have $13 trillion. Also, the breach form version 2 database, or user database was leaked. So if you want to go see people's usernames and logins, that's all there too. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your night, as good as you can.
since he was in high school and coming to Seckc when we were out at Conza Hall. My favorite story to tell about Jake is I brought a capture the flag to Seckc that was ICS based, and we have many lovely, talented, experienced ICS security people as part of Seckc. This one was kicking all of their asses until 9 p.m. when he had to go home because it was his bedtime, because he was in high school. So he didn't get beat until 2 hours later. What's that? Sleep is important, especially in the youth. All right, without further ado, offensive security consultant, Jake Saunders.
All right, Seckc, how are we doing tonight? Man, I am so excited and honored to be able to give this talk to you guys. Originally,
Yep. It is Seckc tradition. If you do a talk at Seckc for the first time, you have to do a shot. You don't have to, but this one opted in, so cheers. We did check his ID.
All right, so originally I gave this talk in, sorry, I got to burp again. All right, much better. I originally gave this talk in Valletta, Malta about a couple of months ago. And in typical college student fashion, I procrastinated until a day before the presentation. I started the slides at like 8 a.m. on a Friday while we were running a CTF. It was total chaos, and I was finished the slides at like 7 a.m. the next day. Slept for 2 hours, and then gave the talk. It received okay feedback, and now I've had the chance to refine that a little more, so I'm really excited to give this talk to you guys. So a little bit about me. My name is Jake. Many of you guys will know me by my Discord handle at Jakes. I am currently an offensive security consultant at Depth Security. I do network and primarily web penetration testing there. I'm also a CTF player for several teams. In the past, I've played for IDEC and the US Cyber Team, and currently I play for the Friendly Maltese Citizens and Ares X. It's truly been a blessing to play on these teams. I've gotten to travel to many different places around the world. Some of those pictures were from China, some are from Italy, some are from Tunis. So I'm very, very blessed. And also have my sorts up there if you're into that type of thing. Where are my speaker notes? Okay. So, breaching the perimeter. How are modern threat actors infiltrating internal networks? So, many people have the thoughts that modern threat actors are enumerating targets externally, and they're finding big software, whether it's like Fortinet or GitLab, and if their software's up to date, they're like doing security research, finding 0 days, which are vulnerabilities that have not been discovered, reported at least. And then they use those 0 days to hack into the network. It's like a movie, super cool, but in reality, this really isn't the case. While some nation-state or threat actors or elite red teams do have these capabilities, realistically, what even like major hacking groups are doing is you're exploiting humans. You're taking advantage of, you're either trying to phish people, you're taking advantage of weak or even breached credentials, and I will talk about breached credentials more later. But in summary, pretty much you're relying not on vulnerabilities in software itself, but vulnerabilities and misconfigurations that system administrators or IT people who manage the network are making in those softwares. And that segues us into the big part of this talk, Entra ID. Entra ID is an absolute beast. Can be very complicated, and it can be very difficult to have a secure configuration of it. So Active Directory is used by 95% Fortune 500 companies in the US. And around like 10 years ago, Azure Cloud came out, and people started transitioning from on-prem Active Directory towards more either hybrid or fully in the cloud setup. So the reason I tell you that is my attacks today are going to focus on Entra ID because that's what I see a lot of as at my time at Depth Security. So the big major way that attackers, after they're doing their open source intelligence and all that, what they're doing is password spraying. Now, a quick note for the difference between password spraying and password brute forcing, which you may have heard of before. Password brute forcing is when you have one account and you're trying a whole bunch of different passwords against that account. However, password spraying is you have many, many, many accounts, but you're only trying like a few different super common passwords. So the first phase that I will do whenever I'm trying to infiltrate an external network is open source intelligence. So I will take in data from hunter.io, I'll take data from vulnerabilities and other similar softwares out there, and their actual use is for like lead generation. So if like you're a sales team and you're trying to find leads, you can use the software to find potential emails to send your information to. Next thing I will use is LinkedIn. So you can search up a company on LinkedIn. It'll give all the first and last names of a bunch of their employees. And you can parse all that data using an extension called Weakest Link, which is available in Firefox and Chrome. And essentially, you parse all that data and you create possible username lists. So I think the most interesting part of this OSINT stage is the Trontastic Azure survey. Pretty much, there is a security researcher named Nick Warlock who did a huge study on many of the Azure and Entra ID tenants. And pretty much what they did was figured out what are the most common usernames that are used in these tenants. And it was a 3-year study. They found out like, I think 70 million. The list has like 70 million different combinations. And pretty much these are all the things I'm using to generate potential username lists because we use those later in password spraying attacks. So something about that research is typically for a penetration test, a lot of our engagements are like 3 to 5 days. And going through 70 million different password combination or username combinations on a test is just, it's not feasible at all. So what I like to do is use these tools called Teams in them or OneDrive in them. And what you're able to do is these abuse unrate limited Microsoft endpoints that allow you to figure out, I think for like OneDrive in them, it uses like a SharePoint URL. And if a username exists, it returns like a 302 HTTP method, HTTP response code. And if it's not a valid user, it returns a 404 error code. So I will use those just against the Trontastic research. However, something that some testers don't do, but I learned from my mentor, is some testers will verify all their OSINT, all the emails they got from their OSINT data. So whether it was leak check, if it was Vlad and abort, all of those things, and they'll verify them here. However, I hesitate to do this myself because these tools are known to sometimes have false positives. So I like to just do the email enumeration on the big 70 million list. So a real attacker with lots of time could do all 70 million usernames and see if they're all valid. However, in the context of a 3 to 5 day external penetration test, I'll typically go for around 3 million combinations and validate those. So, phase 3, passwords. So, I was surprised to learn whenever I joined Depth Security that the most common password you see really isn't like password 123 or anything like that. It's seasonal passwords. So, people often use the current season, the current year, so either 2025 or 25, and then a special character. And we have had a lot a lot of success spraying these credentials against our clients. Another thing that we use is company name mutations. So say that you're doing a test against Amazon. You will take like Amazon, sometimes you'll do like 2025 with like an exclamation point. You can sometimes leet speak it, which is like changing an A for an ampersand or a 0 for an O. And using passwords like that, we've also had pretty good success for. Something else, and this is a really, really, really big one, is onboarding credentials. And I will get more into that later. But a lot of times, bigger companies will have accounts that they add, whether it's like contractors, they'll have service accounts, which I'll also get into later. And these accounts get added, and then sometimes they don't get used. So this is really important, and I'll get into it later. But yeah, so the last thing that there is leaked credentials. How many of you guys have heard of Have I Been Pwned? A lot of people, I presume? Yeah. So pretty much, leak check is kind of like Have I Been Pwned, but instead of just saying, oh hey, your email has been leaked, leakcheck.io will give you access to all the breach credentials and all the from all the data breaches. And it's been a really, really nice way to make sure, it's a good way of like demonstrating risk of reusing passwords, because a lot of times you'll find a breach on, say, LinkedIn or Yahoo, I don't know, and a lot of people will reuse their passwords. So what you could do is take the password from this breach, reuse the credential on EntreID or a VPN, and we've literally, at Depth Security, have had times where we've taken a leaked credential, plugged it into a VPN, and they're just able to log into the VPN. And that just goes to show how powerful, but yet simple, these attacks are. So, part 4, actually spraying. So another part I didn't get into previously was the service accounts. Service accounts are something like IT@depthsecurity.com, admin, HR, etc., etc. Things that you may not find doing OSINT. We just take a very common list of those that we have found throughout our engagements, and we'll also add those to our password lists. So there is one big caveat to password spraying. Microsoft just won't let you try to guess passwords for a bunch of users unlimitedly and without limits. There is a thing called Azure Smart Lockout. Azure Smart Lockout is my biggest op. Every pen tester hates it, and pretty much it's this, we don't really know, it's kind of closed source, Microsoft voodoo magic, but pretty much it helps detect like suspicious logins, and it'll pretty much, if you're not logging in from a known IP, like, which I mean like an IP that's an IP that hasn't used that account before, it'll probably get blocked after like 9 or 10 attempts. On a typical engagement, where it's like 3 to 5 days, I found that you can spray up to 9 or 10 unique passwords against several, your email list that you create, and then that's when Smart Lockout starts to go, hey, no, you're done. You typically have to wait 3 or 4 days after that, then you can typically respray again. So on a good 5-day assessment, I should be able to spray 18 to 20 passwords. We do this, so I was talking about the IP restrictions. If you also are trying a bunch of different login attempts on the same IP address, that'll also get you flagged. So what we have done at Depth is create a Linode box that has access to like a /56 IPv6 subnet. And when you combine this with other tools, it pretty much gives you a pool of like billions, if not trillions, of different IP addresses. So every request, every password login, or every login attempt you make, you pretty much just get a new unique IP address. Demo. All right. to... So now they're not letting me... While I get this set up, does anybody have questions so far? Feel free to just yell them out. Yep. Lockout is a... not playing nice. Can you say that again? Oh, so I'm actually, we're going to talk about that later. And sadly, the answer is not many. So, I think if I have physical access to a device, I'm not going to be password spraying. Yeah, there's a, if you're authenticated, I'm pretty sure you can get what's called a PRT, and that pretty much gives you full access to whatever account that person is logged into on their computer. And if that's the Entra ID joined or domain joined, then you pretty much it's equal to having credentials. You can extract those. If you are able to compromise a host, you can extract those from memory. I see what you're saying. I am personally not sure. I have never had the opportunity to conduct an attack like that, but it's possible that it would give you a little more leeway. I'm just going to face sideways while I do this because I cannot be bothered to make this work. Okay. Okay, so let me get this started. Sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. All right, so the first thing that... Really? Is this how we're playing? Okay. I got it now. It should be good. My terminal is not responding. Yay. Let's try reconnecting real quick. Cool. Okay, so first thing that I will do whenever I am doing an attack like this is do the census enumeration. And pretty much how I do that is, as you can see in this current directory, I have the Trontastic data in here, and I create a Python script to parse out this data. So pretty much what this script does is, So pretty much what this script does is it'll first try to take all the last names from that research, and it'll add each one of these characters to the front of it. So let's say the first username was, or the first last name was I don't know, Saunders, my last name. It's going to append, in this case, J Saunders, M Saunders, A Saunders, and S Saunders. And it's just going to append all those and add it to a file. So let me do that real quick. I'm not supposed to have an ampersand there or an @ sign there. So as you can see, in this case, there was like 2.5 million or so different potential usernames created. So now what you can do is run this command up here, and pretty much it's going to check for all the different emails that are actually valid in this domain for this tenant. So pretty much this can run, I typically run this on a Friday night, or usually Saturday, and this will take 24 to 36 hours maybe, kind of depends. But right now this is checking the, what endpoint is it? It's a SharePoint endpoint, and whenever it says 404 it means that the username does not exist. But eventually I think that there's one password or a username really early in the list that actually exists in the depth tenant. Hopefully. Maybe. After what? Oh, so this is a utility called Trevor Spray. It's like a tool that, I forget who made it, but it's kind of like a Swiss knife for doing a bunch of password spraying stuff. So I ran this command previously, so I'm going to quit now so we don't wait forever. And pretty much what we can do after that is, so I'm going to take all the data, all the usernames that came from that command pretty much, and I'm going to put it into the valid users.txt file. So, can't type. So as you can see, those are some of the emails that were discovered from the census enumeration. So now what I'm going to do is pretty much I'm going to combine all the different pretty much open source intelligence I did from hunter.io, from LinkedIn. I did it before I got here just for the sake of time. And what you're going to do is pretty much just cat those all into one big file. Just forget that file. So next, after I have all those valid emails, what I'm going to do is pretty much, so in order to spray against a certain tenant, you have to find its token endpoint. And you can do this by running Trevor Spray with the recon flag. So I will do that now. So as you can see, the token endpoint is that Windows login URL. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And then craft the command for the password spraying because it's a lot goes into it. And commands.txt. I'm too stupid to use Vim. So I'll describe all this in a second. But I gotta get my URL in there first. Okay, save that. So, okay. So basically what this is, it's a very archaic. There's a lot of tools out there that can probably do this better, but I kind of like the simple bash for loop. So pretty much what it does is it takes every single password in the passwords.txt file, which I will create shortly. And what it does is it runs a password spray against every single email in the emails.txt file that we've created. Skip OA is this, it skips some checks. The J is for jitter. So pretty much, depending how you do your password spraying attacks, you can either kind of go Hail Mary and shoot them all at the same time, or you can kind of space it out. It kind of is just, it depends on how long your test is and what your goals are. So jitter of 5 seconds means that every time that there is a count found that exists, it will wait anywhere from 0 to 5 seconds. And that's just kind of a way to help you not get caught by smart lockout. The rest of those are just like other delays and stuff. I personally don't use it. The URL flag is that token endpoint I was talking about, so that we're actually password spraying against the right tenant. Then random user agent, it just changes up the user agent, which helps you not get caught as well. And the last stuff is pretty much saying, hey, I want you to, instead of going out the normal interface, I want you to use the exit interface that contains all the billions of different unknown IP addresses, IPv6 addresses. So that way you also are kind of evading detection. Then at the end, it echoes the current password into usepass.txt. It's just a very archaic way of seeing how much progress you've made. But before I run this, I need to create a password list. And I'm hoping... So I gave you guys the first password, but I would like help from the audience to see, based on what you've learned so far, what password should we try to spray against this tenant? Any? That's a good one. Okay. I don't know if Happy Gilmore. Hey, maybe if it was the Seckc tenant, it might hit. It might hit. All right. In terms of more realistic password, does anybody have anything they want to throw out? That is an excellent one. Thank you. I heard winter 2025. And hey, that's good because we're spraying the depth tenant. So depth security 2025 exclamation point. We shouldn't. I don't think we will actually hit a password spray against my company. That would be funny if we did, but I'm pretty sure we've done our due diligence and making sure we don't actually do that. So there's the file. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to run that beefy command. It is beefy. It's like 3 lines long. It is a one-liner. It's just very... It's wrapped. Yeah, I mean... Huh. Okay, moment of truth. Does it actually work? Oh, it's working. Yay. So pretty much it's saying a lot of these users don't exist because remember when I told you at the start I like to not I don't want to do username enumeration against some of those usernames because it doesn't take that much longer to spray an extra 200 or 300 accounts. So eventually it'll start. I'm going to do this with verified emails just to show what it looks like. So these are emails that we know actually exist. Oh, that file doesn't exist. Darn. And I think it's existing. Oh, that's gonna leak. Client information, can't do that. Can't. I use this box for work as well, so I want to make sure I didn't leak our clients' names. That would be unfortunate. So I'm gonna cat the file where all the usernames that are actually valid exist. Thank you, I appreciate you, man. So there's some of the actually valid emails that were in the tenant. So I'm going to I put those into a file, users.txt, and then I'm going to go back to that command, and change this username list to the users.txt so it's actually valid. So that's the error you get whenever when the account exists, but the password is incorrect. And pretty much it's just going to loop through and try all these passwords against all these emails. And I'm probably going to stop this right now because I don't actually want to... I would laugh so hard this actually hit. But yeah, I'm not going to let this continue because this is actually like our work tenant. Not today. Maybe if I do the talk for the second part of what you actually do once you get into the network, because originally this talk was supposed to be about how modern threat actors infiltrate and take over networks. But I was at like an hour and a half whenever I did this first talk on just the infiltration part, so I had to cut it out. Yeah. So, my second biggest stop after lockout from Azure, multi-factor authentication. So, let's just say, hypothetically, that we did a password spray and we found a potential and a correct username. Username Saunders at depthsecurity.com, password Bill sucks, exclamation point. And pretty much you go to log in, you go to like office.com or whatever you do to log into your account, and it says, hey, enter a code for MFA. So you're like, oh shucks, what do you do? Originally, I kind of thought that would be game over, but as I came to learn at Depth Security, there are a whole class of potential misconfigurations that you can do when it comes to Entra ID and multi-factor authentication. But okay, yeah, like I said, the first thing that you can check for is you might get lucky and it might not have MFA, but more and more commonly, as we continue the years, it's becoming more and more common that people use MFA. So, a quick note on self-enrollment before I continue into MFA bypasses. So earlier I was telling you about these service accounts that are ripe for exploitation, and this is the reason why. So take a scenario where you're a huge company and you have hundreds and hundreds of contractors that are coming in and they're doing work for you. So you create them a contractor account and they log in, or maybe they don't. You'd be surprised how many times you see where these accounts are created and they're never just logged into or set up. So what happens with these accounts is in many Entra ID setups, self-enrollment is allowed on these accounts. And what this means is once you log into the account for the first time and you have just the password, it allows you to set up multi-factor authentication to whatever device you have because it hasn't been set up yet. This doesn't sound problematic at first because it sounds like a really small window between, oh hey, the account has been created, and oh hey, someone's going to log in and access the account. However, you'll find that a lot of accounts are just forgotten about, whether it's these service accounts or these contractor accounts. And what happens is once you password spray these accounts, you can just enroll into MFA. So this is important because a lot of conditional access policies in Entra ID, which I'll get into later, they restrict access to certain resources only if you have MFA. But if you have these accounts where you can self-enroll, and the joke of that meme right there is, it looks like you have multi-factor authentication enabled when you unveil the mask. It's really the single-factor authentication because all you needed was the password for that account. You log in, you set up multi-factor authentication, and you have full access to resources that you otherwise wouldn't have if you didn't have an MFA-enabled account. So, finding gaps in MFA. In Entra ID, conditional access policies can be set to either explicitly include certain resources as in certain resources, accounts, etc., and also the inverse is possible. So what you can do is one of my colleagues at Depth Security made this tool called Find Me Access, and pretty much what it does is it attempts to log you in to every single Microsoft endpoint, or I guess not every single one, but common Microsoft endpoints that will give you access to interesting data. As you can see, oh my god, my slides aren't up. Guys. All right, I'm just going to do this without notes. I'll live, right? Okay, here we go. So, oh god, you can hardly read that. But pretty much in that chart right there, you have access to resources like the Azure Graph API, which if you're going to access that as without MFA, bad. You can access the Azure Key Vault, which contains sensitive information, Office apps, etc., etc. So pretty much what this tool does is it goes and checks a bunch of different common endpoints and sees are there any misconfigurations in MFA. And you would be surprised how commonly we find these issues with Entra ID configurations. One really, really funny thing about Entra ID, and I, to this day, don't really understand why network administrators do it. You can pretty much set certain, so I was talking about how you can like whitelist or blacklist certain things. We have found that certain applications or certain resources are whitelisted by certain devices, by their user agent. So what you could do is try each one of these endpoints, but you can also try each endpoint with a bunch of different user agents. And user agents pretty much tells you, like, it identifies what device is being used. So the first request from the first endpoint is with an iPhone. The second request from the first endpoint is with an Android phone. And we've seen scenarios where only iPhones or Android phones have pretty much are able to log into certain applications without MFA. So it's a pretty big, it's weird to me, but it happens. So finding gaps in MFA. So there can be some major consequences for MFA gaps. One of the big things that I found is being able to access SharePoint without having any multi-factor authentication requirement. Depth has done some tests against some pretty big clients, and it wasn't me personally, but one of my colleagues was able to access SharePoint. There was MFA enabled, but he was able to bypass that. But the important thing is that SharePoint, it had contained all these documents about how the company works. It contained passwords. It even contained, in some cases, like schematics for like things that are like very confidential and like if they were leaked could cost the company like millions and millions of dollars. It's crazy what people just put inside or like on the internet. But you can also, if there's misconfigured access to Outlook, you can just read people's emails without having MFA. So anything that you have in email, like trade secrets, private conversations, etc., etc. If you can access the Graph API, this is a Microsoft Entra thing, you can pretty much access all the information, or a lot of information about the tenant. And one thing that's really useful about this is if you're able to access the Graph API, you can get a complete username list of every single user in the tenant. That comes useful because you can start password spraying again, but instead of having to kind of guess what emails are in there, you have a full, complete list. So now you're more likely to hit those service accounts or the weird accounts that haven't been logged into, and then you're more likely to find an account that you can self-enroll in. So pretty much you can like password spray one account. If you have Graph access, you can get a user list and you can just respray again, which has been proven to be very effective. And the last but not least, you have SSL VPNs. And I think sometimes with CAPS policies, conditional access policies, can impact whether, like if certain users are excluded from MFA and logging into VPNs, that's obviously very bad. So, you've gained a password, you sprayed Entra ID, and you now have a password for a user. How are people actually using this to gain internal network access to the network? Because a lot of times when you just spray a password, you get access to a bunch of documents, and it's very, very good findings. But the whole point of this talk is how to actually infiltrate networks. So a lot of companies, ever since COVID, have started going remote, and they'll use software like Fortinet or other virtual private network VPNs to access the remote network while working remote. The problem with this is if they're just using usernames and passwords, these passwords can be guessed. You can also password spray the login panels here like you can for Entra ID, but commonly we'll find that sometimes these Fortinet VPNs are connected to Entra ID or Active Directory. So if you spray a password for Entra ID or Azure, you can log into the VPN with those credentials. And there have been some times, not so much in the recent years, but in the past, where you can just log in and it doesn't even require MFA to access the internal VPN. So my understanding at depth, our most common ways we've infiltrated networks is just by logging in. Oh, and also reuse credentials if the VPN is actually not connected to Active Directory. Sometimes people reuse passwords from Entra ID onto the VPN. So essentially the attack still works. And MFA exhaustion, this is a very funny attack. So Microsoft did some studies on some log files from all the different tenants, and they found that sometimes if people are sent enough, like a bunch of different MFA requests, like you pick up your phone and it says, are you trying to log in? Are you trying to log in? Are you trying to log in? People will get frustrated enough at the prompts and they would just hit accept, which is pretty crazy, but it happens, and Microsoft says it has happened about 1% of the time it's been attempted. So it's a very unlikely to work, but I've had some thoughts about how to make the likelihood of this attack work. And so kind of yes. Well, you don't want them to be asleep because they're not there to click the button. But if you do open source intelligence against some targets and you see, yo, we're going to party tonight, man. We're going to get crunk. And you're like, okay, so you said they're going to get to a bar at like 10 p.m. I'm going to try to do it at like 11 p.m. once they've had a few drinks in them. I'm going to try to take advantage of the fact that they're inebriated, and if their phone keeps buzzing, they're not thinking straight because they have alcohol in them, and hopefully they might be more likely to hit the button and accept the authentication. So I haven't done that personally. I don't know if anybody has, but yeah, what's up? Can you say that again? Yeah, if you can get physical access, which could technically be in scope if you're... Oh, yeah, that's fair. But like, technically if physical access is considered in scope, which once in a blue moon we'll get the physical tests. Okay. And pretty much, yeah, you can do physical attacks, you can just get MFA codes and go from there. So, in summary, what's the easiest way to infiltrate a network? Just log in. How can we defend ourselves? Turn your computer off. That is a great idea. We should do that more. So pretty much someone in the crowd earlier brought it up, and passwordless authentication is kind of the future. There's a set of security protocols called FIDO2, and pretty much instead of just using the typical username and password, what you can do is set up. It's different because you can set it up to, instead of being something you know and something you have, you can also set it up to be something you are. And what that means is like fingerprints or like biometrics, and I'll also combine that with maybe a PIN or a password. And it's way more secure. It's very, very, very hard to attack, especially remotely. And there are very few cases of attackers being able to break into accounts whenever passwordless is being used. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you have access to, that's kind of the thing. If you already have access to see that, you're probably not doing this because you already have further access. So for this, pretty much, it could be something you have, like a chip, like a YubiKey, and then something you know, so it would be just like a 4-digit or 6-digit PIN. You can probably do a password as well. I'm not too familiar with FIDO2 because not a lot of people are using it yet. And so for now, what you pretty much have to do is in Entra ID, you can set password blacklists. So say my company is depthsecurity.com. First off, I'm not going to allow the words summer, fall, spring, or winter. And if any password is if someone tries to create a password with those words, it's just going to be like, nope, you can't do that. Next thing, I'm going to put depth security in there. I'm going to put the least speak version of depth security in there. And maybe other common passphrases or words used in passwords like password, etc., etc. Also, strong password policies. Make your password strong, guys. And another thing you should do is check for your conditional access policies. Look for MFA gaps. Blue team people or defenders can just as easily run the tools that the attackers are using, like find the access, for example, and test their own networks and see what gaps they have. Or hire a pen tester, your choice. And legacy protocols. So in typical Microsoft nature, SMTP was supposed to be disabled in August of 2025. It's been pushed back so many times now. Whenever I gave this talk several months ago, it was going to be deprecated in March 2026. But now we're here and it's December 2026. But pretty much, if the administrator hasn't disabled SMTP access, the way it's configured there is it's such an old protocol in Microsoft. You can log in every single time, provided the security hasn't been set up to prevent it, into an Microsoft SMTP server. You can just authenticate to that with just the password, no MFA, because MFA cannot be set on that. And from there, you can just send phishing emails because you have access to that server. You can completely impersonate, like, for, say, the depth security domain. And those implications can be drastic if you can phish with that. Pretty much that is all I have. So, takeaways. Use strong passwords. Make sure you're using Entra ID in a safe, effective manner, and anything else. Like Entra ID is just what I see the most, so that's what I spoke about. But whether you're using a Google Workspace, just make sure you're following best practices. And also, if you have the budget, conduct penetration tests, because I think it is best to hire somebody to come in and attack your networks. It would be much cheaper to do it with them than it would be to have a breach, because those can be very expensive. So acknowledgements, I want to thank the depth security team. They have been so amazing to me. They took me in when I had no experience, and they grew me into the consultant I am today. Every single one on that team has impacted me, but particularly my boss, Jake Reynolds, and Logan Diomendi are two people who have really taken so much time out of their days to help me become a better consultant, and I appreciate them so, so much. And also, shout out to my mom and dad. They're in the crowd. They've helped me so, so much. Love you guys. Where I'm at today would not be possible without them. They've helped me so much, whether it's bringing me food while I'm studying or things like that. So thank you guys so much. And any more questions? And there's a feedback form. I'd love you guys' feedback if you're willing. The form is really, really old, so if you just the talk names are from 2018, but if you just put a note at the bottom and say it's Jake Saunders talk, then I'd be able to get it. But open for questions now. What's up? How do I respond to them? No, yeah. I promise this leads to a Google form. I promise there's nothing sus going on that link. Fair enough. All right, let's have it for Jake, come on! All right, everybody, how's everybody doing? I
even talk. One more time for Jake. Send him out. Like, woo! All right, we're going to go for a little bit of music, and then we'll be back with Sis Aaron. Hire for. Come on up while you're setting up. Come on up if you are trying to fill a role. Come on up. Come through this door over here. If you're trying to fill a role. If anybody's hiring, come on up.
He does mean if you are looking to hire, please approach the stage. I don't know if CMH still has a couple job openings, but if anybody is still looking, I believe that you could go ahead and look around at CMH.
All right, it looks like we have our first job approaching. Dressed in stylish attire.
What's up, everyone? I'm Christian with Honeywell and KCSC. We are needing Linux admins, software engineers, and data scientists, all three. It's like kcnc.doe.gov at careers, or come find me after if you're interested.
Thank you very much. If you're looking for a job, go tackle him. Yeah. Actually, I want to watch. Bring him back up on stage and we'll just have that happen. All right. Going once, going twice. Anybody else?
I heard from somebody else, Kansas City Hospital is also looking for some IT, some security individuals, so just passing that along.
It sounds like our DJ Jim is signing up to be the job tracker.
You know, you go ahead and lay down the beats, you go ahead and connect people with the tunes, bring everybody up higher spirits. It's all in the same job role.
Do we have another job? Okay, it's not for Dan.
Okay, so I've got friends over at HNTB, and they have 2 job openings for security. They're looking for security analysts and data analysts. I just wanted to give them a shout out. They're not here today.
All right, if you are looking for those jobs, don't tackle Dan. All right, while they're setting up their computer. All right, if we can bring the house lights up real quick. How many of you have spoken on the Seckc stage? If you have spoken, please raise your hand. I'm sorry, let's be very clear. Have you ever given a talk at Seckc? Yeah, a panel counts. If you have spoken at Seckc and you have not signed my skateboard, I would appreciate your signature and your fingerprint and your credit card. Give me what you got. Oh man, we're going to talk about this Discord stuff. All right, so in the news, Netcode mentioned Discord is moving to, I guess, ID verification, facial recognition, all of those kind of things. How many of you guys are aware of that thing going on? Thank you. That means some of you paid attention during the news. I appreciate that. We do use Discord for Seckc. We're looking into alternatives. If you have strong opinions about what we should move to. We've heard TeamSpeak, we've heard a few other things, but anyway, just make sure that that we hear, IRC, right? Let's go back to IRC. Like we've tried, we've tried everything. We'll use Telnet. Perfect. All right. Well, we are looking for. I heard you, but we are looking for other alternatives.
Man, that's one less thing I'm in charge of. If that happens, I kind of like that. But I'm not running an IRC server at my house.
How about that? We'll do that at Bill's house. Bill, is that fine? Is that okay?
Yeah? Fuck yes.
Get to work. I'm Jurist. It's good to see everybody. I'm here to introduce somebody that appears
To be very similar to somebody that's done some things for this organization before.
specifically. I want to introduce a gentleman named Aaron Scantlin, who's a professional that works
At a very large professional organization who, despite what you might think about and have heard about
somebody in antics or whatever you think, ain't the same guy.
this guy's going to give a really good talk about something that's really important: software bills of materials.
As you can tell, this man, people talk about
Security rock stars. This man is a security bill of materials rock star.
look at how he glistens. Look at how that JSON shines.
It's incredible. It's accurate. Put your hands together for the good doctor.
Aaron Scantlin. Thank you.
There's probably a joke about chains and JSON. Chainsaw. Nah, alright, whatever. Good evening, Seckc. My name is Aaron J. Scanlon, better known to most of you as Sis Aaron, and I'm pretty sure this is the first presentation that I have given to y'all with my work hat on since I've moved over to Fedville. Yes, I am a filthy Fed. Don't worry, still going to be full of quips, full of zingers, but I am going to have to watch my mouth. So, we'll see how it goes. I like to start my talks with an outline of what we're going to go over so that you can decide whether you want to keep your butt in that seat or not. We've got that shut the F up wall. See, already. With a lovely bar back there. And this talk is being recorded, so maybe you want to go pick locks. Maybe you want to go buy some merch instead of watch this. I don't really care. You do you. But our agenda, so I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about myself. I will provide a small disclaimer about the info that I'm providing in the talk. We'll define this SBOM thing that we keep to. Actually, Juris already did it. It's software bill of materials. What a jerk. We'll talk about how they can help you keep your environment secure. I will go over the different types of SBOMs that are out there. Why one is better for security operations than others. I will follow that up with a discussion about the actual contents of an SBOM and what you want to make sure your vendors are providing you. Speaking of, we'll talk about where SBOMs come from. After that, I will tell you about a tool that you can use to ingest and act on these SBOMs called Dependency Track. I'm going to call it D-Track for short. Get your mind out of the gutter. I will talk about some pain points that I've had using D-Track, and we'll talk a little bit about the SBOM life cycle, and then we'll tie it all off with a very pretty bow. All right. So, again, if you don't know who I am, Sis Aaron J. Scanlon. I am currently a cybersecurity engineer for the National Energy Research Supercomputing Center, or NERSC. We are an enclave of Lawrence Berkeley National Lab out in Berkeley, California. We are actually hiring too, but you have to move out there. So, yeah, there's that. But talk to me if you're interested. I do know a lot of stuff, or I do a lot of stuff there. I'm probably best known as a resident Zeke geek. And I was uncomfortably referred to as the SBOM King last week while I was on site, so I've got that going for me, which is nice. I first got involved with Seckc as an undergrad back in Mizzou in 2014 for, I don't know, 5,
6 years. Does anyone else remember? I made the drive out to Kansas Hall from Columbia, Missouri. Zero regrets, as I have said many, many times over. I attribute a lot of my professional success to Seckc. I have met a lot of people and learned a lot of things through volunteering with this crew, so you should too. I cut my teeth doing endpoint security, incident response, and digital forensics, but back in the COVID times, I pivoted over to high-performance computing or research computing. We've got a joke in research computing. The S in HPC stands for security. This is an amazing field of practice researchers are bleeding every single 1 and 0 from the lightning rock that they can, and the overhead that the security controls can incur makes a measurable difference in processing at scale. I've volunteered at the HPC conference Supercompute since 2021, and as of last year, I'm actually the first person to ever get a Supercompute tattoo. Hey, Bill. I'll get a Seckc tattoo on Seckc's dime after the show tonight. Your move. All right, well, we know where the after party's going to be. I am also a frequent MC at B-Sides. I'm a DEF CON goon. The latter is probably my crowning achievement from a volunteer perspective, but it might be Seckc again if I get the tattoo. So we'll see. We'll see what happens after the show. If you are a hardware nerd, I've included a slide about Perlmutter. This is the supercomputer that I am charged with helping secure. This bad boy debuted at number 5 on the top 500 list, which is an annual HPC thing that ranks supercomputer performance. We are currently working on the design and deployment of our next supercomputer, Doudna. The work I have been doing evaluating, converting, ingesting, and analyzing SBOMs for software running on Doudna is what inspired this talk. So, quick disclaimer. This should be treated as an intro to SBOMs, not an authoritative guide. I've had to learn a lot about them very quickly, and it hasn't been super intuitive. It hasn't been fun either, and I'm going to be completely honest. You know how I decide on what to give talks on? When something makes me angry enough. At a certain point during my work, I say to myself, this sucks, and I need to tell people about it. So that's honestly why I'm here. I won't lie. There's a great opportunity for a part 2 in all this. I'm probably too lazy to write it. I don't know. So for those of you looking for a talk to do, take notes on this. Maybe build upon it. But please don't feel like you actually have to take notes. I'm releasing these slides. They are going to contain presentation notes inside of them that have, I'm going to say 90% of the things that I'm saying, because if I don't type out what I'm going to say, I'm going to ramble. I'm going to post this on the Discord afterwards. So if you're not a part of the Discord, you should be. Yeah, I'll post it in the Blue Team channel, because that channel doesn't get enough love. Okay, so with that out of the way, a software bill of materials, or an SBOM from here on after, lists out all of the components, libraries, and modules in a software product in a machine-readable format. Thanks for the definition, IBM. They've actually got a really good article on SBOMs. I've linked that in the notes. But basically, think of it as the software equivalent of a recipe. A chocolate cake is made of ingredients, so is software. And at the end of the day, software you write is a collection of things made of code cobbled together to do something. And SBOM is the list of things that software is made of. Simple, right? Oh, sweet summer child. Listen on, listen on. It would be great if, like a recipe, there was one commonly accepted way of representing information, but this is IT, so we've got multiple standards. From the information security team perspective, you're going to want to make sure that your vendors provide you with the Cyclone DX SBOM. Cyclone DX was a format introduced by OWASP and designed specifically for application security and software supply chain risk management. As a result, it's going to contain a lot more security-relevant information than the other two formats. I'll show you a little bit later how to do a conversion from SPDX to Cyclone DX, but this is a lossy conversion. Things tend to go a lot better if your vendors provide you with Cyclone DX from the get-go. SPDX was introduced by the Linux Foundation. It's really geared more towards ensuring open source compliance from a licensing perspective. This is what a lot of vendors will produce by default. You don't want that. I'll talk about why later. The last format is SWID. This is actually depreciated as of 2024, so if someone is sending you these, brace yourself for a pain train of getting them up to speed. So, how can these things help me? All right, well, ideally, SBOMs can be used for a variety of purposes. Understanding what your software is comprised of, for starters. That assumes that the SBOMs are good, though. We'll talk about what makes a good SBOM versus a valid one. With a little bit of elbow grease, you can get vulnerability information about those software components, and then with a little bit of finesse, you can organize all of this information into useful groups. So what is CycloneDX? CycloneDX is a JSON blob of data with a specific format. I've got a link to it in the presentation notes that you can check out later. Here's a dirty little secret, though. These are the only two required properties of a CycloneDX JSON blob. As such, if your statement of work to a third party says something to the tune of contractor must provide valid SBOMs, you might have a bad time. You are heavily hoping that they are acting in good faith, because technically they can send you something that has the BOM format and the spec version, and that's that. That's a valid SBOM. Fulfilled the statement of work, buddy. Next. It's actually kind of a wonder that the component property isn't required. An SBOM with no components is really of zero value. But anyway, shown here is the beginning of what I'm calling a minimum viable SBOM for security operations. This means that all the components are shown, versions are recognized by the repository that they live in, and vulnerability data is being discovered where appropriate. It's kind of pretty boring housekeeping stuff, to be completely honest, what I've got up here. The BOM format is specified, the spec version is specified. The newest version of CycloneDX is actually 1.7. Dependency Trend doesn't actually support that yet. Let's see, version is the version of the SBOM. You'd increment this with each update to the SBOM. More on that later on the SBOM lifecycle section. The metadata section contains when the SBOM was generated, as well as the component and the SBOM was generated for. In this particular case, we are looking at a fictional NPM package. It's called My App, because I'm real original. And this is all what I'd consider to be what security teams should expect as a baseline for SBOMs. Just remember, the default is very scant on details. Do not simply say needs to provide valid SBOM, be specific. This part is what we actually care about, the components area. So annoyingly, while type is a required field for this, it's really just a label. A vendor can call an application a container, for example, so only trust that field so much. The name and version are also just cosmetic labels, although it's not hard to get this lined up with the actual Perl or CPE string, so I'd still consider that a good requirement to make on your vendors. The Perl string is the real heavy lifter here. Perl stands for Package URL Specification. These look kind of weird, but they're a format all of their own. I have linked to the spec in the presentation slides. This is probably the most relevant part. What? Probably. I'm not old, so I don't use PERL. Go to sleep, Grandpa. The scheme will always be package for now. The type is the package repo that is used. So like npm, gem, PyPy, whatever. The name is all, those are the only fields that are required. In order to be of use, the version should be a requirement that you make your vendors include. An SBOM without version numbers is a lot less useful than one that does have them. If you run Red Hat or other Linux distros that backport patches without updating version numbers, you would do well to require your vendors to include the appropriate qualifiers section of the components so that you don't get a ton of false positives in the vulnerability findings. We can see that in our minimum viable SBOM, this Perl string, or this specific Perl string has a schema package, a type of NPM, a name of leftpad, and a version number of 1.3.0. The other Perl string packages are similar, but for the other packages. Now, this section I wouldn't really call minimal, but if you want to put your vendors to task and have a seriously useful SBOM, make them go so far as to fill in the dependencies section. Here we can see that I, as the creator of this SBOM, have filled in that my app depends on the 3 components it's made of. Pretty simple. Right now, though, the dependencies of those components aren't represented. Now, full disclosure, I have zero practical experience with creating SBOMs, just making the ones I receive not suck. I am a assuming that SBOM generation tools like Black Duck provide the capability to recursively fetch this information based on Perl or CPE string, but I don't actually know that. So, for the budding DIYer, you can get these dependencies for NPM packages with this handy-dandy curl command. Replace the name and version with the software you're interested in. Voila! You're going to get a magic JSON block back that's going to contain a dependencies block. If that block exists, your dependencies will be in there. If it doesn't exist, congratulations, you don't have any to worry about. Rinse, wash, and repeat until you've gotten to the bottom of the pile. But this can't possibly be how people create SBOMs, is it? No, not by hand. They should always be reviewed for accuracy before being passed along to the customer. But, again, I'm not in the SBOM producing arena, so I'm not one to speak authoritatively on this, but I can say that I've seen a lot of vendors use a tool called Black Duck. I have absolutely no affiliation with them, but I have noticed their name in the metadata section of a lot of SBOMs. I know it can produce both SPDX and CycloneDX SBOMs, and I know that it's possible to export useless SBOMs with it, because I've spent a lot of time fixing them. So read the docs carefully and save your clients invaluable time. Please, for the love of God, I'm begging you. I also want to take a second to shout out IBM. Out of all of the vendors that I've worked with, their SBOM has needed the least babying by me, namely 0. IBM uses an internal tool to generate their SBOMs based on metadata. I've asked them if it's commercially available in any capacity. I haven't gotten a response yet. They did decide that I can't share their SBOM with you, which really sucks, and that's why I'm going over this sample one that I wrote, but that's okay. And if you happen to use IBM Storage Scale and you want an example of an amazing SBOM, ask your IBM rep for the SBOM for IBM Storage Scale. Okay, so let's say you got an SBOM from a vendor. Great! Everyone loves reviewing 141,000 lines of JSON manually, right? Yeah, wrong. Enter Dependency Track. So Dependency Track is a software that's maintained by OWASP that aims to make CycloneDX SBOMs actionable documents. I've got the link to the repo in the presentation notes that you can check out later. It takes in CycloneDX SBOMs as inputs. You configure various vulnerability intelligence mechanisms to get vulnerability info. It can output to various platforms. Hooray, automation! I'm not going to lie, I don't actually use any of its outputs. I just work with things within Dependency Track, but for all you people who like sending out Jira messages and Slack messages every time something changes, you can do that. Hooray! Deploying this out to try is really, really simple. It's right there. It's also in the GitHub project that I'll have linked in the slides, so you can check that out later. For production deployments, you'll probably want to deploy it in some Kubernetes environment using their provided Helm charts. But this works great to get a workflow started and just start playing with the tool. Now, for obvious reasons, I can't show you the entire NERSC dependency track deployment. But here you can see that I've created, well, okay, actually, I'm not going to lie. Y'all can't see that nah, you can't see that. But what is showing up there is this little thing that says Scantlin SBOM Talk Example. And then I've got my app down there. So I'm organizing all my SBOMs for this app in this one little area. And I've got, boom, my one SBOM there. It's so great. It's so handy. If I click into my app, I get a nice dashboard. I can show executives to impress them. Ooh. I also get some high-level info about the application at a glance. That's pretty cool. The Components tab is where you can see details on each of the components of the application. That green checkmark means that it's the current version of the software based on the repository configured in the Perl string for this component. The yellow exclamation means that a newer version of the software is available in the repository. And you'll notice, if you look closely, that it is possible to not be at the newest version of the software but not show any vulnerabilities. I only point that out because not being at the latest version of the software doesn't necessarily imply that it's vulnerable to something. Maybe it's just some feature update that they don't care about, all right? Now, of course, for security's purposes, we're going to be interested in what vulnerability data we do have. Now, this is going to illustrate one of the downsides of DTrack. So, specifically, enabling multiple vulnerability sources can actually result in the duplication of findings. However, it can also make up for some shortcomings in the NVD. So, up on the screen that you probably can't read, but maybe some people in the front can, You've got 3 GHSA findings and 3 just NVD CVE findings. GHSA is like the GitHub, what is it? GitHub security advisories? Yeah. Now what's interesting to note here, so they're duplicates of each other. They all reference each other, right? There are 3 unique issues on the screen. However, what's interesting to note is that CVE 2025-13465 doesn't have a severity rating from the NVD yet. In case you didn't know, the NVD is backlogged to all hell and back when it comes to analyzing vulnerabilities for criticality. So it does, however, have a severity rating from GHSA. So, yes, we are duplicating findings, but we're also ensuring that we get the most accurate severity rating. I don't really think that there's a right approach to doing this, but my rationale in enabling all of the analyzers and vuln resources is that when a vendor fixes the issue, multiple findings are going to go away, right? Finding a way to deduplicate this would be nice, but it's not like a high priority on my list personally. Finally, SBOMs can be really useful when the next hot new 0-day drops and your C-levels ask you, hey, do we have anything that uses XYZ? Oh, hey, who remembers React to Shell? Jesus, you guys have short memory. Did you drink it away? Oh, professional. Okay, so realistically, you probably aren't going to have SBOMs for every single piece of software in your environment. If you do, kudos. But for the software that you are tracking and detrack, you can use the name and version fields that are shown here in this screenshot to look for vulnerable versions of software. Very, very handy, assuming you have worked well with your vendor and ensured SBOM accuracy. Again, this stuff is only as good as your vendor makes it. Oh, and one more thing, that dependency section that I mentioned earlier, if it's filled out properly, you get this lovely dependency graph at your fingertips. Isn't that neat? Ah, that's super cool. C-levels love that stuff. Okay, so no such thing as a free lunch, right? What do I not like about dependency track? First of all, it was not very fun to deploy. Now that, admittedly, probably comes from my lack of experience with Kubernetes up until this point. Local deployment went perfectly fine, all right? But using a Helm chart was my first foray into Kubernetes, and it was in an environment that I didn't manage, which made things a little bit harder. There was a lot of trial and error. The good news is that ChatGPT can help you stumble through it with minimal headache. I was surprised at how few findings I was getting out of the box. This seems to result from the Perl being the common way to provide vulnerability info, but the NVD doesn't actually support Perl. They use a different format called CPE. I've linked to that standard in there. Enabling additional vulnerability sources and analyzers seems like a key necessity to account for whatever your vendor is going to pass you. Perl seems much more common than CPE. When you do enable the OSS index, there is an issue that you need to worry about if you don't want your Postgres database thrashing the hell out of itself. The suggested workaround and fix is solid. This is just an FYI. I wouldn't consider our deployment significant, but our infrastructure guys yelled at me about this problem, so it's not like insignificant, I guess. And finally, I will say that my least favorite part of this adventure has been getting SBOMs converted to Cyclone DX from SPDX. You've got 2 tools that I know of that you can use to convert an SPDX SBOM into Cyclone DX. There's the Cyclone DX CLI tool, or a tool called SBOM Convert. You would think that Cyclone DX CLI would be your better choice, but I have found that SBOM Convert is more performant. While this will get your SBOM that you get whenever you request this. I haven't discussed it in this talk, but Dependency Track does have an API that can be used to automate the fetching and ingestion of new SBOMs. It takes a process that both you and your vendor agree upon to set up cleanly, but it can be pretty handy for making sure that your SBOMs are up to date without manually uploading them. When you get a new SBOM, review the deltas, go through the process of mitigating or accepting risk with the vendor. Just like the vendor has a responsibility to make new SBOMs as the software changes, you have a responsibility to actually pay attention to those changes. Treating this like a one-and-done exercise is a waste of everybody's time. Right then, so what did we learn? SBOMs can be a great tool as long as they're generated, ingested, and handled properly. Otherwise, it's a bunch of complicated security theater that's really not worth it. You can't really control how vendors produce SBOMs. Well, actually, it depends. If you have a statement of work with them, you can. But to reduce pain for security teams, have that statement of work specify that SBOM should be provided in Cyclone DX format. Maybe you also want them in SPDX format for, other purposes, but I'm telling you that for the security team's purposes, there is one acceptable format, and it's Cyclone DX. Also make them require all components, including components of components. And make sure that the component fields type, name, version, Perl, and BOMREF fields are all filled in. If you want your SBOM to really shine, make them fill out the dependency fields as well. Again, converting from SPDX to Cyclone DX is a lossy conversion. Requiring your vendor to provide you with Cyclone DX from the beginning will save you time, effort, tears, pain, suffering, et cetera, et cetera. When we are done here, I will upload a minimum viable Cyclone DX SBOM. Something that I will call a better minimum viable Cyclone DX SBOM, which is just the same thing with the dependencies segment added. And this slide deck so that you can read all the presentation notes. Again, 90% of what I've said on the stage is in these presentation notes. I'm putting this in the Blue Team channel in Discord because it doesn't get enough love, and this is pretty solidly in the Defenders area. I want to take a second to give a huge thanks to both Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and NERSC for letting me talk about the work that I've been doing, as well as to all of y'all for listening. You can hit me up via email, you can hit me up in the Discord, Cicerin, or you can ask some questions now. What you got? I see a hand. Who's got a microphone to give this dude? Do we have a microphone to give this dude? All right, he can yell.
One's coming out.
Microphone incoming. So there could be a lot of, let's say a dependency track as an example, if you're using an open source project in your company. Is there any tools that you're aware of that can dynamically generate a software bill of materials for open source projects and get the dependencies of those? Let's say if that person is maybe, there's maybe not a lot of maintainers that are doing SBOM stuff because that may not have taken on in the industry.
Black Duck appears to support that functionality, but it's a paid-for tool. As far as open source tools, I don't know of any off the top of my head because I've not been involved in the production of SBOMs. I want to say that either GitHub or GitLab has a capability to produce an SBOM at some particular licensing tier. Yeah, that's all I got off the top of my head. Unfortunately, that's one area of this where I don't have a lot of experience.
I could definitely use some homework on that, and maybe that'd be a fun project to do.
And then make a talk on it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
What else we got? Can you give me a chassis tour? Yeah, if you want to come out to Berkeley when I'm on site.
I'll talk to you afterwards.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else? In theory, like I said, assuming that you trust the SBOM, again, think about React to Shell, all right? So let's say, again, in the context of how NERSC utilizes it, what I've got is a set of SBOMs that make up the software that's being deployed on N10, aka Doudna. So let's say that some hot new 0-day drops and folks want to know, so we've currently, okay, I got to double a little bit more. We have what we currently call an EAS, an early access system. Its name is Seckc. It's named after a researcher named Thomas Seckc. Anyway, so Seckc has been deployed. Let's say that there's a 0-day that makes headlines, and my C-levels are like, hey, is Seckc vulnerable to this? In theory, I've got SBOMs for everything that is installed from the vendor. I don't have anything from like, userland or whatever, from like staff members testing stuff. But in theory, I have a full inventory of the components of everything on that system. So all I do is type in either the name of the software, or I can get as specific as name and version in the, there's a component search area of DTrack, and boom, you've got a list of, if anything in your system, what has that. Similarly, it can be nice for like showing folks what vulnerabilities are in their software. Granted, like if you're in container land, you've already got things like, Docker scans that can show that stuff, but this is an area that, I don't know, SBOMs are becoming more of a requirement in the federal space. I don't know how much of that is bleeding. I know that, so for folks that are doing, research with CUI, controlled unclassified information, this ends up extending to them. And we sometimes get held as the gold standard of security, so maybe more civilian agencies and groups will be requiring it. So I don't know how much y'all are affected by this, honestly, but yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
You were asking about open source SBOM tools?
That guy was.
Yeah. Microsoft actually has one that's cleverly called SBOM-tool on GitHub. So.
Amazing community at work. So there you go. Test out SBOM tool and see if it's any good. Figure out why all these other groups are paying for Black Duck. Make fun of them. Or, well, okay, don't make fun of them. Show them why they shouldn't use it anymore. No offense, Black Duck. I told you I have no association with you. All right, stun the rest of you into silence.
No, the DJ has a question.
Oh, I was about to turn it over to you anyway, so what's up, man?
I was going to ask, with the standards that are sandwiched together and all of that, would it be more or less painful if that was XML instead of JSON?
That is a data science nerd question that I do not have the capacity to answer. Although what comes to mind is that Stack Overflow answer about parsing HTML with regex.
That is the correct answer.
If you're not familiar with that Stack Overflow question, you should ask me in the Discord, and I will provide you a link that will give you a very good belly laugh later. Okay, is that it? All right, Johnny, I don't know if you've got any Cray-Sean, but you should play some of that.
One final remaining question.
I mean, shoot.
Inquiring minds want to know how good you are at SBOM defusal.
I hate you. Good night.
All right. I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. We have Cohesity. They're going to do their drawing for the prize. I want to thank Cohesity and Rapid7 for sponsoring us tonight. We can't do this without our sponsors or our bartenders. Please tip them. Let's see. Someone draw. Tony, draw. Who is winning? Omar? Omar in the house? Omar Stanford.
Got to be present.
Omar. Omar. Oh, I don't think we got that.
Moving on. Let's go.
Going once. 3, 2, 1. Darren, pick a winner. Andy Barbano, you won. Yeah, we will check ID as soon as Discord does, so we're going to have names, addresses, all that stuff. Andy, I know you came out tonight. You bought some sweet Seckc swag. I saw you in a new hoodie. Andy! Third time is a charm. Let's do this. It's going to be Daryl King. I don't know. Let's. Donta Hamill? I know I screwed that wrong. I don't know why they give me microphones when I can't pronounce any word in the English dictionary. Right? No, I think I was right. It'd be the first time in 2026. Mark it on your calendar.
Dante Hamill.
Dante?
Dante Hamill. Oh, come on now. All right.
Come on.
All right, we'll keep going.
Let's see. I missed it. It's too light. Just say Daryl King. Like I'm.
Paul Payne. Paul Payne. Paul. That one.
Thank you for staying in attendance. I really would like to thank the crowd for coming out. We do this on the second Tuesday of every month right here at Knuckleheads. It's Patch Tuesday. You'll find us here March 10th, if I remember the calendar correctly. All right. All of you, drive safe. Thanks again for coming out. Cohesity, wonderful. You guys came out here. Thank you, Rapid 7. Johnny, thank you for holding the merch table down. Take it away, Johnny.